to our talk today. And that talk is Ready for Finals, Executive Functioning Strategies to Empower Your Diverse Learner. So I'm Kyle Feingold, and I am co-founder and Chief Inspiration Officer at Guiding Bright Minds. And we are here specifically for our webinar series. Today is number 18. We do the webinars every 2 weeks. This one, as I mentioned, is titled Ready for Finals, Executive Functioning Strategies to Empower Your Diverse Learner. So Guiding Bright Minds was really founded and came to fruition because of my journey, my wife's journey, and the journey of so many others, probably like many of you joining us today. And really, the mission of Guiding Bright Minds is to be one place, the one place where parents go, and parents and people guiding and supporting diverse and neurodiverse learners to find everything they need on their journey. That includes a place where they can find research on all the different neurodiversities and learning diversities. Not only some of the challenges that go along with those, but what are the strengths that go along with those neurodiversities? It's a place where parents come to connect with other parents and really get that support that only somebody else experiencing your journey can provide. We also have a network of screened and vetted professionals that are part of our network that really can guide you as parents on the next step of your journey. So our network is vast, and it includes psychologists, occupational therapists, professionals who provide ABA, support groups, and then schools specifically geared towards working with and helping students thrive that have diverse learning styles and neurodiversities. So my wife and I founded this organization just about a year ago. We're coming up on a year anniversary. And really, it's, again, the goal is to become one place, the one place where parents go to get everything they need on their journey in guiding and raising their diverse and neurodiverse learners. And so one of the reasons why this got started was really our personal experiences, my wife and I. For me, my experience started as maybe very similar to your child or to yourself. And that was, I was a diverse learner growing up back in the 70s, back when I had hair. And when I had hair, I found out in 5th grade that I had dyslexia. And then later in life, we found out I had ADHD. And through my journey, it was really difficult at times because educators didn't understand me. My parents knew I was bright. My parents' friends would tell my parents that I was bright, but in school, it was a real struggle because of the way I was wired and the information or lack of the information that was known by educators. So my own personal journey about 17 years ago, I started an organization to really give back and empower learners just like me called Results Learning. So through my own personal journey, in understanding that, I've run into so many parents that say to me, it was so hard to find you, and it's not like we stay under a cupboard, but it's hard to find the right resources on your journey because there's so much out there. There's so much information, it can be overwhelming. For my wife, my wife and I, we are raising an amazing 8-year-old neurodiverse child who's, for me, and I hope you say this about your own child, but probably the best person and human being and most intelligent human being on the planet. But in raising him and trying to figure out what he needs, even for me, somebody who is in the education industry, somebody who grew up with ADHD and dyslexia, it's still hard for my wife and I to really navigate the road to finding what my child needs and at any given point, the right resources, our community, the right providers or professionals to go to. And it's really difficult. And my wife experienced this herself and trying to find the right path and navigate that for my son. So we got together about a year ago and we said there needs to be one place where parents can go to find everything they need, a central hub, a central location. And a year ago, again, we founded Guiding Bright Minds. So we welcome you. We hope you will join us in your journey and let us be a part of your journey as you navigate the waters in raising an incredible, diverse and neurodiverse child or children. So we hope you'll check out our website, guidingbrightminds.com. I'm going to drop it in the chat as we get started. I'll send you a follow-up email with our information at Guiding Bright Minds, as well as the information that Brandon presents on today. In addition, we have a YouTube channel. We hope you'll visit our YouTube channel. Again, something I'll send out to you. And parents, know that we are getting ready to launch the second iteration of our website. And in doing so, some of the content that's now available on our website is going to become gated to members only. Parents are completely, we want you to be a member of Guiding Bright Minds, and it's completely complimentary. It's free. There's no fees to pay. We just want you to become a member and stay in touch with us. Build community through our community and let us guide you on that journey. So we hope you will find value in what we're providing and become a member of our community. If nothing else, sign up for our newsletter, stay in touch about the webinars we offer every 2 weeks, just like this one. And if there's any way that we can support you along the journey, please reach out and let us know. And my wife, Tiffany, or I, or anybody on our team will be happy to help guide you in the right direction so you can help your child live their best life, find their strengths, and be amazing. With that, I want to introduce to you the webinar and our guest speaker today. So our title for today is Ready for Finals, Executive Functioning Strategies to Empower Your Diverse Learner. And I have Brandon Slate here today, who is the founder of Untapped Learning. And, he is going to provide you with tips and tricks to support your student and set them up for semester-long success. He's going to focus on routines, active studying, self-advocacy, and really encouragement from you. If you're able to take a few of those tools away from the presentation today and implement those, he feels that you're going to find lots of great success in your journey. So with that, Brandon, I'm going to hand it off to you, and can't wait to hear the content you want to share with our community.
Yeah. And Kyle, thank you. Thank you so much for everything. If anybody hasn't had a chance to go to the Guiding Bright Minds website or their YouTube yet, I do really highly recommend it. I know we share it with our families all the time. And so it is a really valuable resource, no matter what type of learner your student is. So, yep, thank you again, Kyle, and definitely really highly recommend the resources there. So we're going to talk about executive function today, but we're going to do it through the lens of final exams. If we can start implementing some of these habits and routines now, it's going to make final exams in the end of the semester so much easier. So many of the kids that we work with really melt down at the end of the semester. But again, if we can get in front of a few things here, it's going to make this a lot more smooth, and it's just going to be a more positive experience for everybody. So let's get into a few things real quick. Here's how this presentation is structured. So I'll just give a brief introduction of myself and why I may or may not be the right person to talk about this. Then we'll talk about what is executive function. I'm assuming a lot of people here have some background in it, but it is kind of a buzzword in education right now. So we want to make sure we know exactly what it is before we talk about strategies to help that. The great news about executive function skills is that we can develop them. It's not easy, but with time, effort, and hard work, we know we can develop these skills. So we'll talk about this. And again, we're going to do this through the lens of final exams. Finally, some of our students who struggle with school are the ones who don't necessarily know how to do school. A lot of quote unquote good students understand the skills of school and how to do school intuitively. If we can teach our kids a few skills, then we know they can improve in school significantly. So that's how this is going to break out. And then I want to leave as much time as possible for a question and answer. I know a lot of us in this room, sometimes attention is a limited resource, so we want to make sure this will take about 25 to 30 minutes and give as much time for question and answer as possible. So here's a quick, just a quick review of who I am. So I was actually raised in Boulder County, Colorado. I myself, just like Kyle, was diagnosed with ADHD. I had the perfect type of ADHD though. I was the one who was flipping tables in kindergarten and all over the place. And I was the one who got noticed very quickly. So I did get supports. The fact that I was in the 99th percentile on the hyperactivity scale was actually a huge help for me. It's always the kids with inattentive ADHD we always feel for, because those are the kids in the back room who don't necessarily get noticed. But I was diagnosed with ADHD at a very young age. With this came a lot of struggles. I actually have two brothers and myself who are all significant ADHD. And we joke that my mom still has a designated parking spot at our middle schools and high schools because she was up there all the time dealing with the teachers and principals and everybody else. After high school, I went to University of Ohio on a football scholarship, and I failed out very quickly because I could not figure out how to manage my academic with my social, with all the demands that were being placed on me. Again, with this level of ADHD and this level of independence, I really struggled. And this is not an uncommon story for people who have significant ADHD. Luckily, I had a few great mentors in my life who showed me how to do school and how to set up my life. So once I was able to get through undergrad, I was able to get a master's and an educational specialist in school psychology. While doing that, I taught special education in Boulder Valley School District for 10 years. My job in Boulder Valley School District would go into some of the hardest classrooms and I would put out the fires there. So whatever classrooms were just really, really struggling overall, we would go in and I would go in and implement habits and routines to help these kids settle down and ease into their education. Then about 3.5 years ago now, I founded something called Untapped Learning. So Untapped Learning, we do significant mentorships for our students with executive function challenges. And I thought this would be a fun side project. And now we're seeing a couple hundred kids in Boulder County. And now we are seeing, we just opened a center in Centennial. So some of our mentors include a CSU football player with dyslexia, Air Force basketball player with ADHD, young female engineers with anxiety who have been through the struggle. And those are the ones who mentor our students. So that's how we give our executive function services. There's just a quick background of who I am and kind of why I focus so much on executive function. So real briefly, here's what executive function is. So executive function is the complex set of cognitive processes that work together so you can achieve your goals. Now, your goal may be something big, like making the high school soccer team, or being in the school musical, or being in the marching band. Or it may be something very small, just like paying attention, or cleaning your room, or finishing your homework. We think of executive function as the CEO of your brain. It is one of those things where put together all these small pieces to get to the large task of reaching your goal. Here's what executive function consists of. And throughout this presentation, we're going to talk a lot, especially going into final exams, about how to improve your time management strategies, your focus, your task initiation, and the things that so many of our kids struggle with that are essential this time of year. But I want to speak to organization real quick, because I think that's a really misunderstood piece of executive function. So most people think of the organization as our kids' backpacks are messed up or their rooms are a mess. And this is true, but our kids are so creative with so many great thoughts. Where they struggle is their organization of their writing is messed up, or they can't get those disorganized thoughts onto paper. So if we can give them instruction, not necessarily on writing, but how to organize their writing and outline, we see them thrive. Same thing when they get to higher levels of math. If we can help our students discipline themselves so they can line up all their equal signs in a row, then we see a lot of other things academically and mathematically fall into place. I want to focus on organization in every sense of the word right here. Those are the big cognitive processes that executive function consists of. We're going to come back to this a lot throughout the presentation. I also like to talk about misconceptions about students with executive function skills real quick before we jump in. So the first one, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, but so many of us internalize that we are not intelligent because we're struggling so much in school. And hearing Kyle talk and hearing other people talk in my last few years, I've been fortunate to meet so many CEOs and entrepreneurs with this ADHD gift. ADHD is one of the biggest gifts in my life once I figured out how to discipline it. It ate me up for 30 years, but when you learn how to discipline it, things really fall into place. So again, in our practice too, we see about 200 or so kids. I have neuropsych reports on many of them. We have very, very few students with below average intelligence. Our kids are often very intelligent. They just need help in these strategies and developing these skills to really succeed. Next one, and this usually is one of my first questions when we do question and answer, is why can my students focus on video games nonstop, but they can't get a simple math worksheet done? So is my student lazy, unmotivated, or something along those lines? Well, this comes back to how our brains are constructed. So if you have ADHD or another executive function deficit, what happens is we have lower than typical amounts of dopamine. So things that give us immediate feedback or are dopamine producing, like video games or something like that, you get really into. And again, this is where you hear the gift of hyperfocus and other things. And something like a math worksheet, which may be painful to the neurotypical student, can get it done. We have twice as hard of a time jumping into. So it's not that we're lazy or unmotivated. Sometimes we do have other structures and habits into our life. And the last misconception is students who struggle with executive function are not successful in life. Again, looking at Kyle or many other people that I know, I can't tell you how many people I've learned the fact that your brain works different in the real world can be an incredible gift. In school, it is not, but in the real world, it can. The World Employment Organization just released their jobs report with the most sought after skills for employees in 2021. And creativity and ways to look at problems differently have skyrocketed over the past 20 years. The fact that our kids' brains work differently is going to be a huge gift as more and more things get automated. I would highly, highly recommend you as parents to view this as a gift and not go to the worst place in your head, because so many of these kids have the potential to be unbelievably successful. So that's what executive function is. Here's how we develop these skills. Before we start with developing the skills, we want to look at a few mental frameworks. So when I say mental frameworks, all of our instructions come through these mental frameworks. And the first one, and this really resonates with our older students, is discipline equals freedom. So this is actually a Navy SEAL saying. I definitely did not make this up. But the Navy SEALs, they preach to all their cadets that discipline equals freedom. It's a high-level counterintuitive concept, and it is absolutely essential if you are neurodiverse. So the way we preach this to our students, and again, coming back to final exams, is 30 minutes with your teacher in office hours will save you an hour and a half on the back end. By the time I figure out what to study, initiate the task, and focus, the structure with the teacher or professor will save me a ton of time on the back end. If I'm disciplined enough to plan myself out on a Sunday night, I have the freedom throughout the rest of the week. Many of our kids become very defensive because they just get very defensive over their time. They feel overscheduled. We want to preach a lot of the strategies we're going to give to them is it will require discipline up front, but the goal is to give them twice as much freedom on the back end. This freedom may be less anxiety about finals. This freedom may be free time, but we want to give them time to develop their gifts and pursue what they're passionate about. So discipline equals freedom. The next thing we want to look at too is research-based, what actually helps executive function skills. I know when we work with families, and especially when I was a special education teacher, someone may get a diagnosis of significant anxiety or ADHD or something like that. And the first thing that they want to do is go get a 504 plan. Getting a 504 plan or an IEP is very important. There's no doubting that. But research-based, what helps executive function skills more than anything is at the bottom of the pyramid. Sleep, diet, movement or exercise, and routines. Keep this in mind when we go into final exams and start setting this up early. Sleep is the lead domino. Nothing else works until we start to get our kids' sleep schedules out, figured out a little bit. This is one of the most common misconceptions because we work with so many college students, is that I don't have time to get a quick workout in, or I don't have time to walk around the block because I got this big test tomorrow. Nothing could be further from the truth. Exercise and movement, 15 minutes of exercise and movement is performing better in some clinical trials than Adderall and other stimulants right now. 15 minutes of intense exercise and movement will increase learning, increase memory, retention, and everything we want for final exams significantly. So start at the bottom before you move up. Let's make sure these things are locked in. Right time to start them is now if you can. Sleep, diet, exercise, and routines. Could not recommend those more as we head into final exams. Another mindset we want to come at it through is that by the age of 10 years old, our kids with executive function challenges get 20,000 more negative comments than positive comments. This is why our kids respond so well to positive reinforcements. So again, research-based, the best way to go at this, as we say it, is 2 pats in the back, 1 kick in the tail. Love accountability. So anytime we can praise our students for doing the right things and give them those that positive reinforcement, we do see much better results. Now that's in the lab and that's in studies. I know someday I feel like great instructor if I can do one positive to every two negatives because life happens and these kids are exhausting. But as much as we can give positive reinforcement, especially as the academics get more and more challenging, we're going to see a lot of positive. We're going to see a lot of positivity on the back end for that. So those are the mindsets that we will come in. I want to give two concrete strategies today about how to start attacking final exams. The first one is making a plan. The best way to do this is either on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, but we always recommend Sunday night. So how this would look is you and your student sit down on a Sunday night and to the best of your abilities, write down a plan for the entire week. It may sound simple, but this is one of the most research-based strategies that we can do for our kids. We also see our kids that do this in final exams are much more likely to be successful. And the reason it's so helpful is because the modeling is important, but on top of that, the conversations that come from this are also a great way to build executive function skills. Conversations like, if you have a soccer game on Thursday, and if you have a research paper due on Friday, or if you have a final exam on Friday, how are we going to get there? What do we need to do? So these conversations are golden. So making a plan on Sunday night and actually writing it down. With this plan, what we're doing is we're helping develop these executive function skills by teaching our students how to anticipate deadlines. Next, what we want to do when we build this plan is we want to front load big assignments towards the beginning of the week. I know with my ADHD and a lot of the kids that we work with, people don't understand that attention is a depleting resource throughout the week. So usually our projects and our bigger exams, for whatever reason, are towards the end of the week. But attention goes down throughout the week. So we want to front load as much as we can. This will help decrease anxiety in our students and we'll be working downhill. Again, front load where possible. Teaching this explicitly to your students does have big returns on the back end. We do want to show them how to build in small assignments in the week and make sure we're planning for this. So the easy example is like a nightly math homework or something like that. And then the important piece is we want to check in with this plan. We want to make it very clear up front what the accountability is. So if you complete your Monday plan, X happens, some kind of positive reinforcement happens. And if you don't, here's the accountability that happens. These clear expectations on the front end are essential. It helps really, really improve these executive function skills. And again, when possible, have this plan very visible. We usually recommend on the refrigerator every time they're hungry, opening up the refrigerator. That's a great way to see your plan over and over. So clear expectations and accountability. So please don't let this overwhelm you. But this is an example of a plan we made last week for one of our kids. This is a very high achieving AP student at a local high school here in Boulder County. And they're busy. They have a lot going on. But what we did is we just listed everything out throughout the week. And no matter how high level the student is, we can get it to about 4 or 5 things per day. So this is also a student with anxiety. So what this plan does, so how we present this plan to the kid is we create the whole plan and just give them at a time. Positive reinforcement, we're focusing on one day and one day only, and we're able to get through everything without any doubts. We feel very confident that this kid's ready to go off to college and succeed because they understand how to plan, they understand how to break things down, and they understand what's expected of them. Again, anxiety goes down, attention goes up, exactly what's expected of us. So highly, highly recommend a Sunday plan. Another piece of this as well is if your student is not ready for this, or if you have a younger student, simply sitting at the kitchen table and planning yourself out on a Sunday night and modeling what this looks like is a great way to start for your family. Sometimes kids don't always do what we say, they always watch what we do. So Sunday planning, or however that looks in your household, highly recommend making a routine of it. And by the way, do this especially before finals start, so it's not like this new routine and shock to the system as finals do start. The next thing we want to focus on, and again, this was on the bottom tier when we showed that pyramid, was the impact of routines. When you have an executive function challenge, you have got to become unbelievably routine-based. This sounds horrible at first, and I know I fought it for about 30 years myself, but it's the discipline equals freedom mentality. If I'm disciplined enough to have routines and get my morning workout in, then I have the freedom the rest of the day to have attention. If I'm disciplined enough to have a space in my house where I use it for homework and homework only, well, I have the freedom of getting my homework done much more efficiently and at a much higher level. If I have the discipline and I have the routine to not have my phone out while I'm doing my homework, again, I have a ton of freedom on the back end. So a lot of these routines we're going to talk about, we want to implement these as soon as possible. Go slow to go fast here, just one routine at a time. But here's what routines do for the neurodiverse child. They make things predictable. There's an 80% correlation between ADHD and anxiety. We're always running behind. Someone's hollering at us. I'm sure someone somewhere is very mad at me for forgetting to do something right now as we speak. But with that anxiety, routines will significantly reduce the stress and anxiety. Things are to do. So routines. Also, and again, in a perfect world, we would do our homework and do our studying same time, same place every single day. Obviously, life happens, but if we can do this, it's going to also increase full focus and organization. There's a lot of attention research out there about routines and how even no matter if your attention is very poor, if you build a routine, your focus will significantly increase. It helps us become more efficient. And we do all this stuff through the lens of school, but it's not really about school. It's about building confidence and discipline and lifelong skills to be successful. So routines. We always want to start where the biggest fire is in your life. So here's an example of a fire in my life. I got here on time for a noon presentation today. That's super exciting for me. Actually, not so much, but I used to be late all the time for everything. And when I was running late in the morning, it's because I couldn't find my phone or anything like that. And then my day was already off to this super anxious, crazy start. So I built a morning routine. This is about 10, 15 years ago when my life was really, really crazy. But I have a bowl, you can see it on the left, and that bowl is my landing pad. When I walk in the door, wallet, keys, phone land there every single night. In the morning, that's my launching pad. I walk past it, I pick it all up, I'm gone for the day. Nothing needs to be, I'm not running around, I'm not looking for anything crazy. Before I go to bed, clothes are laid out, backpacks packed next to the door, smoothies in the fridge. No matter how poor my attention is that morning, my 3-year-old is out of control or something's going on in my life, I can still get out the door in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on my dog, if how quickly he goes to the bathroom, things like that. But I can get out the door very, very efficiently. I'm not stressed out about my routine like I used to be. So this was a fire that was going on in my life that we helped build a routine to put out that fire. Great thing before final exams too. Do not want to be entering a final exam if you've had a challenging morning and perform at a high level. So routines. We want to build studying routines or whatever we can, but one routine at a time. And the mindset is, if I get out the door late in the morning, that means I messed up the night before. So there's just an example of a routine in my life. When we look at homeworks or academic routines, I briefly spoke about you want to have one space and one space only to do your homework or your studying at. Again, that'll make us more efficient, increase learning, memory, attention. But with that routine, we also want to start with a routine inside of that routine. So here's how I recommend our middle school, high school, and college students start their routine. So it takes about 5 minutes, but the first thing we do is we organize all of our materials. This is every single school night, by the way. So most of our kids don't get more than 3 to 5 sheets of paper during it. If you do this every single day, it takes about 2 minutes. If you do it once per month, you're going to have a mess on your hands. You're going to be cleaning out your backpack on Saturday, and we're going to have a ton of missing assignments we need to redo. So putting all your papers where they need to go. This also may mean electronic organization, like clearing out your Google Drive. We want to check our grade portal, not to get obsessed with grades. But if something goes missing, we want to catch it before that ADHD or executive function avalanche happens. So I know when I failed out of college, by the time I figured out I was far behind, it was already too late. I was already gone. So we want to check grades every single night so we can fix things real quickly before we have this huge mess on our hands. And then we want to check our teacher websites and assignments. So whether that's Schoology, Google Classroom, Canvas, whatever, we want to organize our materials, check our grades, and check our teacher assignments. If your child can do this with executive function challenges, you're going to know where their stuff is at, they're going to know where they stand in a class, and they're going to know what is expected of them, assignments to complete. This 5 minutes has been life-changing for many of our students to begin with. Again, it's simple, but it's just having the discipline to do it single day. When we're looking at final exams too, we want to enter the final exam in that class with the highest possible grade to give us bumper room in case something goes wrong. So that means starting this now and cleaning up any missing assignments or anything like that. Once we get to the end of the semester, we generally don't have enough time to turn in all of our missing work and study for finals. And then we're scrambling, and then anxiety monster comes. So starting this now is super, super important. So those would be if you take two things from this presentation: planning at the beginning of the week and then accountability throughout, and then implementing routines. Those two things are the most research-based and some of the most helpful things we can do for our kids, especially entering this very challenging time of year. One last thing I wanted to speak out real quickly is how to do school before entering final exams. Again, a lot of our kids don't understand how to do school, and this gets them into trouble. So when a lot of parents think about this, they're like, my kid's 16, they should know how to do this. What I want you to think about here is this help, and this guidance, and this instruction up front will lead to future independence. So we start structured, and then we ease off. So don't think about they should know how to do it. It's how do I help now? And then that way I can ease off and they can be independent entering college or the workforce or life or whatever they decide to choose. The first one, and the one that we see so often, is a lot of us get very frustrated because our kids have accommodations or something of that manner. And we're always like, advocate for yourself, talk to your teacher, talk to your teacher. And what happens is 90% of the time it doesn't happen. Or when it does happen, it doesn't get the result that we want. This is because so many of our kids with executive function challenges, they don't know how to advocate. So I would take the time with your student to teach your student how to advocate. Give them scripts and role play. So teaching them how to walk up to a teacher, shoulders back, head high, in a confident and kind way while speaking to their teacher will have big effects. Again, this may look like heading into finals. What's the best way to study for this exam? I may need extra time on this final, or can I make up a few missing assignments in order to put myself in the best position possible? Teach your students how to advocate, because I'm guessing they don't know how. The other piece of this that's become very relevant recently is teaching your students how to advocate over email. Giving them scripts and teaching them how to send a kind, respectful email is invaluable. If you need some of the examples of these scripts, I can email these to you as well. I'll include my email at the end of the chat, but this is something that we probably do weekly with our students, is teach our kids how to advocate. My favorite thing right now is, it feels like half the new students we get are writing the entire email in the subject line or something like that. So teaching your kids how to advocate, role play, and scripts, invaluable. Again, done through the lens of school, but is not about school at all. The second one, which I kind of spoke about earlier, just sprinkles freedom, is heading into final exams. Nearly every teacher in every school increases their office hours. A lot of them will have weekly office hours set up now, depending on the school. But if they do have office hours now, it's very important to go now. If your teacher knows you care, it's a very different ballgame for our kids with executive function challenges. But showing up to office hours, I can tell you, as someone who spent my whole life in teachers' lounges and worked at so many different schools and collaborated with so many different teachers, the kid thinks you care, they're more likely to round up your grades, they're more likely to give you extra credit opportunities, vision opportunities, or make up assignments that may not be, that other students may not be eligible for. If your kids think, if you're willing to give up 30 minutes of your own time, I can't tell you how far that goes with a teacher. Teachers want to know your students care. And again, it saves you hours on the back end, because this structure, this focus time is really, really valuable for our kids. By the time we task initiate and stay focused, structure as we go through final exams. Next thing, that's a great thing that we do. And you can see this is an example of our our business, we have football fields in our warehouse, just because most of us have hyperactive ADHD. And you can see this child is studying for his chemistry final exam. There's note cards all around the mentor. And that's just how this kid studies. He's not a sit still kid. But we need to teach our kids how to study. For our students, a lot of us do not have the gift of extended attention, meaning they get to college, they're always amazed that other kids can chug Red Bulls and sit in the library and cram for final exams. That is never an option for us. We will never have that. So we need to get things from short-term to long-term memory. The way to do this is short, frequent, steady sessions. So you were to have a Spanish vocabulary test on a Friday. Our kids, if they study 10 minutes on Monday, 10 minutes on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they will have much less study time than if they were to cram the night before, and it's more likely to get from short-term to long-term memory. This helps a lot with test anxiety and other things as well, is because once you get things to long-term memory, we're not as anxious, or we are more likely to retrieve it if we are in an anxious state. So short, frequent study sessions, great thing to build into plans. We want to teach our kids active study. So a lot of our students that we work with, we see passively interact with the material. Again, if it's a vocabulary test, looking at malevolent, if it means evil, all means bad in Spanish, it looks like it has violent at the end. Doesn't matter how you break it up or how you associate it with previous experience. If you give the brain a reason to remember something, you will. So teaching your kid how to interact with the material. Again, the brain will pick it up quicker. You will spend less time studying, master the content. So active over passive studying. Again, simple things that come intuitive to other learners, which don't necessarily to our kids, is if it's a comprehension test, reading the questions before you read the passage, explicitly teaching a lot of these things, even if it may be common sense for you, and then learn to use your strengths. Like I said, this kid does not sit still. My attention is too poor to read, but I was able to get multiple graduate degrees from pacing around the block and acquiring research over Audible. So learn to use your strengths and teaching your student that there's no right way to study. And then this is just something I kind of threw in at the end because it was so powerful for the kids in my class. And going into finals again, I'm going to have everything in the best possible shape so there's not a ton of pressure on us for final exams. About my first 5 years teaching, I would get very frustrated with my students for having missing assignments. And they'd be like, yeah, okay. And it wasn't until I broke down exactly what 10% did to their grade, explicitly taught to them why this was important and why we got it done, for the light to come on for them. By showing them what 0 did to their grade and how through completing missing assignments, by breaking this down for our kids with executive function challenges, it was very, very helpful. So I know a lot of other people have had this same response as well with their students, is showing them what a 0 does to their grade, explicitly teaching what I thought they previously understood. Again, starting structured up front, independence. They understood why I was getting frustrated with them. So this is the last slide, and this is after your students. So hopefully we set up the planning, we set up the routines, we've taught our kids the skills to be good in school. I know I'm going through this very quick. This is like a doctorate level course on executive functioning, so I'm happy to go into more detail later when we have more time. But all the latest neuropsych research on how to really, really improve executive function skills is showing this mathematical equation. Stress plus rest equals growth. So again, this is after your students are done with final exams. A lot of parents want their kids to keep pushing hard over winter break and get ready for next semester. I highly recommend that we allow for some downtime and for some rest. By the way, this should also be built into their daily routine. We should have some kind of rest somewhere. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 15 to 30 minutes, but some kind of brain break for our kids. But stress plus rest equals growth. So if we keep pushing hard and hard and hard, we never see the growth on the back end. Now, does this mean your kid should never read a book over winter break? Absolutely not. We can still work in 30 minutes to an hour of reading time, but I always like to show this is what the latest research has shown. So it's really important for winter break after finals are done to get a high level of rest. Spring semester is brutal for a lot of our kids. We make sure they come as recharged as possible. So that is what I have. I hope that was helpful. I did go through it pretty quick, but I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has them.
Brandon, that was great. I love your last quote there, or your last statistic. Stress plus rest equals growth. We know finals, preparing for finals are it's a lot of work and can cause a lot of stress. So I love your emphasis on rest and growth. So we want to open this up for questions. We have two. Feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A box, please, and we will have Brandon get to as many as we can during the rest of our time together.
And I'll pull up my email as well if something's more personal or we work, like I said, we work with hundreds of kids with executive function challenges every year. And so I know some of these are personal and some of them are deeper than just a quick Q&A box thing. So
awesome. Thanks, Brandon. All right. So our first question, if a high school student on an IEP who is out of a district placement has no homework, how can parents implement the strategies you recommended? So stated a little differently, when a child doesn't have any homework, how can you instill the discipline and the routines, Brandon, that you talked about?
Yeah, great question. So that's the other hard thing about some of these presentations is that every school is so unique, right? It looks different for every single child. But so I'll kind of answer this two different ways. What if the kid is thinking about college, and if that may not be the goal? So we see that kids who are even exposed to routines and planning, they do really well in college, even if they're exposed to it, even if they have to do it. So this planning would not, plans would be much lighter, but it would not look like the plan I showed you. It would be looking at what are the kids' goals at the moment, right? Like, are they trying to get better in instrument? Are they digital design? Are they what are the goals? And then taking this big goal and then putting it into small daily steps and having some routine around. So it may just be 30 minutes a day of shooting free throws or something like that. But exposing your students to the planning and routines has huge effects on the back end. Really, really helpful. And then that way too, if they do decide to take their education a little bit further, they're not really freaked out about this homework that's coming because they understand kind of how to set up their life. And if they're not thinking about college and they are thinking about a certain career, then it's the same thing. What's the goal of this career? What kind of certifications? What can we do now? What kind of job? But taking these big picture things, breaking them into small manageable steps. When there's no teacher involved, praise, praise, praise. Really, really reinforcing these. So a lot of praise there.
I completely agree with that, Brandon. Love it. So here's one. What is your opinion about listening to music during homework? Is it distracting? Does it help?
Yeah. One of the first questions we actually ask our college kids is, are you a library person or a coffee shop person? So some of us, ever since I saw Ghostbusters when I was young, libraries have freaked me out. I just can't do them. They're quiet, and I'm always worried someone's going to pop out. I'm a coffee shop person. So with my ADHD, I do like the buzz in the background. It is calming to me. So I do understand that. However, here's where it gets kids into trouble: is the research that recently came out of California, Irvine, is if I'm in peak attention and I get a text message or I look at my phone in some capacity, it takes me about 23 minutes to get back to peak attention. I'm distracted, which is really depressing because it means most of us are distracted almost all of our lives. But if they are going to listen to music, the one non-negotiable should be the playlist should be set up ahead of time and you aren't touching your phone. That would be my recommendation. And again, coming out through that discipline equals freedom thing, every time they look at their phone to change the song, they just lost attention. So if you are going to do music, you got to set everything up in advance. I listen to a playlist every single day when I do it, but I do not touch my phone while I'm working.
Awesome. That takes a lot of discipline right there, not to touch your phone. I'm just saying from experience. So I love that you do that, Brandon. I think that's great habit.
Yeah, I talk about a lot of things about through research, but that doesn't. That's why I say research, not me, because I still have a long way to go here.
I hear you, me both. All right, so you spoke about the location that you put your keys when you get home. What did you call that?
So when I come in the door, it's my landing pad. Everything lands. In the morning, it's the launching pad. I can't tell you how many times I've lost my phone, how many times I've lost my keys, how many times I've lost my wallet in foreign countries in horrible ways. So I lose everything. So I have that. That's why I start with that presentation. I have to put it there. It's a non-negotiable for me.
Awesome. And Brandon, this person presented, or they wanted you to know first that you presented a lot of great information and it was helpful. And they're wondering, where do they start? Like, what should be the first thing, the first tool or strategy they should introduce to their particular child? It probably varies, but what's your thought?
I'm really happy you asked that. So when I give this presentation, or like much more famous, credible people, like people, or they read Atomic Habits or something, and they talk about the power of routines. Everyone wants to just throw all these routines in at once. If you want something to stick, you've got to do one routine and one routine only. I would say I would look for the biggest fire in your life. So that's, again, for me, it was getting out the door. What's the one thing that will make a lot of other things easier? That's where I would start with it. And you could go the opposite route as well. What would be a very easy routine to implement and positive reinforce so my kid does start to understand the power of these. So you come at it from two different ways. One, what's going to make your life a lot easier, have the biggest bang for your buck, or what's low-hanging fruit, which we could just start this process off.
Great. And so here's two similar questions. First, any suggestions on motivating a high school student to adopt a routine? This particular person receives pushback when they discuss it, and it always ends in a fight. Any thoughts?
That is, first of all, that's common. It's very easy for me to sit up here and talk about routines. They can be hard to implement, especially when you have high schoolers. So there's a lot of different ways to answer this. One is you could look for mentors in the kid's life who can help hold that kid accountable. I know that's something that we see a lot, is if that's an opportunity through an organization like ours, or through a church, or through a sport, or through a music or something, start to implement it there. Could be a good thing. If that's not an option, then very, very clear expectations, consequences, positive reinforcements, just very, very clear. It is not easy, and please keep in mind that it is developmentally appropriate for the adolescent to rebel right now. I would, the parents who are like, yeah, my teenager listens to everything I say. Those are the kids I worry about more.
Yeah, you're not kidding. That's a great point.
Wow, that child's gonna be living with you for a long time. It is developmentally appropriate for them to rebel. But so that's why, if you can find a good mentor somewhere in your child's life to reinforce this, that's a great do it, but also just the clear expectations. Some kind of dopamine hit when the routine happens is great. This doesn't always have to be money. It could be like 15-minute extending curfew, 20 minutes more of video games throughout the week, or whatever your kid's into. I'm always a big fan of positive reinforcement.
Awesome. And here's another question about working with a 6th grade student. I'm kind of having trouble finding motivation, identifying goals, among others. Any suggestions around identifying goals in particular, Brandon?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to answer without knowing the kid.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were into an extracurricular, you could definitely start there. Sports are just an easy example, just because you can really break those down to a small thing. And I'm sure you can music as well. That's just not really my background. Yeah, that's a hard one without answering the kids. And
go
ahead. Please piggyback on that.
Yeah, no, I think, kind of piggybacking on what you said, finding something that's interesting, or that the child's interested in. Sometimes those interests happen naturally, as Brandon said, like whether it's a sport or acting or music or welding, whatever it may be. But then helping the child look at it from a goal standpoint. Okay, you'd like to do this. What's the next thing you want to achieve in being a soccer player, or when you go to soccer practice? And start with forming goals around things that the child likes to do, and then take that same structure of forming goals and gradually introduce it into those more difficult things. And if you can tie those two together at all, if you can tie academic goals with goals that have to do with extracurricular activities or later in life, you can get some additional buy-in if you're able to kind of connect those goals.
That's much more well put than what I said. Thank you so much. The other thing too, kind of the mindset for, again, not right now, but later on in life, keep in mind that with an executive function challenge, motivation is junk. We are not after motivation. If it's raining outside or cold, I'm just not motivated. I feel like if I wait for motivation to come and go, I'm going to be waiting a long time to achieve some stuff. So we're really after discipline here. We're not after motivation. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind for when your kid gets a little bit older.
That's a marvelous point. All right. So you mentioned the power of zero. Can you explain that a little deeper for us, please?
Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely. So I'll go back to that slide. This is always a really hard slide to give because I swear every single school has a different way of grading things right now. But if this is old school, when all of us were in school and like there weren't different categories and every assignment's weighted the same, here's how I phrase it to my kids is on the left, here's my math homework. And at the school I taught at, we just gave them math homework grades for the week rather than the day. But let's say you get 100% on your first week, 90 on your second week, 84 on your third week, 79. Your grade is an 88% class. So you did 4 assignments, you did 4 weeks of homework, doing very well in this class, and I'm really proud of your effort here. On the 5th week, which is what our kids do, they just say, oh yeah, it's just 1 week. It's fine. It's not a big, it's just 1 week. If I add a 5th week, if I add a 0 because I get too comfortable, don't stick to my routine. Well, I almost went from being very close to an A in this class. Now I'm very close to a D. 1 out of 5 assignments dropped me. So how we do this with our kids is that we look at their grades or their on campus or whatever, we show them the impact that missing assignment has. And they're usually amazed by how big, because in their head, it's like, yeah, it's just 1 assignment. I give this slide less as you actually doing it, but more of an example of what we assume they know that they don't. One of my favorite people of all time, John Wooden, for basketball fans out there, he was the head coach at UCLA. He's thought of as one of the best coaches of all time. And he said it was 80% incompetence, 20% disobedience. His players messed up. So 80% of the time, they just didn't. And then 20% of the time, well, that's the disobedience that we need to take care of with discipline. So that's kind of the mindset behind this slide.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for diving into that. Appreciate it, Brandon.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So the next question. This person would love to help their son on Sunday night with Sunday night planning, but teachers make it challenging because they're pushing assignments back or putting a new assignment in throughout the week. So what are your suggestions on how to help him when the initial assumption changes? And also, the teachers, also half the teachers do not add any information to the school planner, so you're relying completely on what the particular child or the student brings home.
That is so frustrating, especially when you're trying to do the right thing.
Yes.
So the core of the planning happens, and I'm sorry, I'm probably going to speak to an older student here, and then I'll come back to your situation. But the core of the planning happens on Sunday night. That's why this slide is added in. That's why we still check teacher websites every single night, is because people do update stuff throughout the week. But when you're adding stuff, whether it's in a planner or where on a sheet of paper or wherever, that shouldn't take more than like 1 or 2 minutes if you're looking at teacher website, because you've already done the core you're planning on Sunday night. So you do still have to plan nightly. That's a great question, by the way. Thank you for expanding on that. So this may be for an older student. If teachers, so now I'll try to come back to your question. Teachers don't have websites and they're not posting, and you're relying on the kid's report. First of all, we want to teach our kid how to advocate to make sure his planner is correct. And then step 2, after we've taught our kid how to advocate, then I really recommend for teachers or for parents to reach out. But I think that's an appropriate moment to reach out because you're trying to do the right thing and you're trying to give your kid the long-term skills to be successful. So then I would reach out to the teacher, however the case manager, however that setup looks. And I would say, like, here's what we're trying to do every single night and we're getting stuck. What recommendations do you have for me? Can my child check out with me at the end of the case manager, the teacher at the end of the day to make sure everything's correctly? So we'd want to set a routine around that. But if you're trying to do all the right things and you're getting stuck, that's when I think it's okay to reach out. Do you have anything to add to that, Kyle?
No, I mean, I think you did a great job answering it. Thanks for asking though. All right. So here's another question. Similar to the music question, do you have any tricks or strategies that work to minimize distraction of YouTube, especially when kids need their device or access to homework? And I know you hear that a lot,
It is literally, if I had that figured out,
me too.
Sorry, Kyle. Sorry, Kyle, but I may not be here today. I would probably be a billionaire somewhere. It is the hardest thing. You are not alone. It is every single kid. It's every single teacher. My wife's a teacher. All my friends are teachers. It's in the classroom nonstop. It is so hard. The only thing that we've kind of started to see slightly works with it is that discipline equals freedom talk. Is that we want you to get through your homework as quick as possible, because we know how much you love jumping on the trampoline, so you can go out and jump on the trampoline and not be in front of your computer for forever. It's kind of something that resonates more with older students, but that's so hard. That's so hard. I wish I had something better.
So here's a great one, and I think this can potentially answer some of the other questions on here too, or at least be part of the answer. But so, Brandon, do you have resources to provide to school personnel? One of the problems is that schools, teachers, and administrators don't understand how to support executive functioning challenges in the classroom and an IEP. So how do we provide resources to, and information to school personnel to really help them understand this and arm our students with great strategies and potentially accommodations?
Well, so a couple things. So, I mean, I talk to schools all the time. So if you shoot me an email, like I just spoke to all the Douglas County counselors a couple days ago. So if I can help in any way, please let me know. I work with a ton of school districts. So there's that way. I mean, yeah, directing them to like Guiding Bright Minds websites and things like that. People who like, this is my whole life. So this is what I focus on. So people like that who really focus on this stuff. But if they're not open to any of that, the biggest bang for your buck in the classroom is having very clear routines for your kids. So when they walk in, here's what they're supposed to do. Walk out, here's what they're supposed to do. Having very, very clear routines is unbelievably essential. I know my 7th period classroom used to be 20 kids with ADHD. If they walked in and they knew what they were supposed to do, that made my life so much easier right away. So that's where I would start talking to them. But there's a lot of people out there like myself who are more than happy to help the schools and are ingrained in a lot of school districts.
Absolutely. And just one thing I'll add to that, and then we're going to close out, is to help teachers remember, when back when they were studying to become a teacher, they probably learned about working memory. And one of the things with working memory is a lot of our kids with executive functioning deficits struggle with working memory, the ability to grab information, hold it, and manipulate it. And if we give kids too much information in one chunk, auditorily or even visually, what happens is that information drops out of working memory before they can use it. So if we teach teachers to give our kids, students, information in very short, chewable chunks, they're going to have more success with our students in the classroom, and our students going to have more success adhering to what the teacher wants in the classroom.
Discipline equals freedom. If you're disciplined enough to do that, you're going to have a ton of freedom. Can I add on really quickly before we jump onto that? One of the shifts we've seen in education in the past 10 years, which I think is great, by the way, because it's how the real world works, is we're switching more from working memory-based to project-based. So it used to be like, you were my teacher, you give me 50 things to learn about the Civil War, and I would regurgitate it back to you on a test on Friday. Now schools are becoming more project-based, which is great because it's how the real world works. But we're attacking those executive function skills like we never have in the schools. So we need to teach our kids some of these skills and teach them how to break things from large, overwhelming chunks to small, manageable pieces. So we're attacking executive function skills like we have. So that's a very important thing for them to understand.
Absolutely. Brandon, I want to just say thank you so much for your time today. The information you provided, I think, was so helpful to so many of the people here today, as you know, and everybody here, we're going to post this on our YouTube channel. We're going to send you a recording of this presentation, and we hope you will share it far and wide. Brandon shared a lot of great information, so please share it with others. Please share it with your teachers. If we can do anything at Guiding Bright Minds to help you along your journey, whether it's helping you directly, helping your child, pointing you to a provider like Untapped Learning and Brandon, or anything we can do directly, please reach out to us, as we want to be your primary resource as you guide and navigate your neurodiverse learner to great things. So thank you. Thank you, Brandon. Really appreciate everybody's time today. And hopefully you'll be back in 2 weeks for our next webinar. Thank you so much. Thanks,
So much,
Brandon.
everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you, guys.